Hello, welcome back. There seems to be a huge amount of debate around calories in versus calories out at the moment. Either it's on everyone's tongues or my algorithm is definitely serving me. Well, either way, a lot of people, dietitians, nutritionists, a lot of personal trainers, a lot of coaches, everyone's debating whether it actually works, whether it doesn't, whether it's applicable or not. So I really wanted to share with you some insights today into what it actually means and how I don't necessarily think that it actually works the way that you think that it's supposed to work. And I want to share with you how you can make this entire concept, this principle, actually work for you. Because if you've ever counted calories before, you've probably felt like it's a you problem when you can't follow through. You probably feel like you're broken, right? Or that you are the one, the unique person that struggles with either tracking or counting or sticking to your calories. Now, you can track all day and you can weigh things, you can weigh every grain of rice and you can hit your numbers, but you can still be starving by 8 p.m. Or somehow you've either gone over your calories already and you just don't even know how. And quite often I'll hear from women that they're just sitting there thinking that this system is rigged or it just doesn't work for you. And I actually agree in a way, right? As a strategy, the way that most people are taught to use it, it is flawed. But the actual law underneath it, calories in versus calories out, kind of isn't. That's the bit that it really gets lost in translation. The law itself, energy in, energy out, that is science. That is not going to be disproven, right? So that in versus out doesn't really care about your hormones, your age, whether you're in menopause or not. It doesn't care about thyroid or PCOS or even your period. It doesn't care about any of it. It just is what it is. So what's flawed about this system is how it gets handed to you, stripped of all context, like a spreadsheet, instead of given to you as a human being, as a woman. And that's what I actually want to unpack today, because there's a massive difference between that law, that rule being wrong, and the way that you've been taught to apply it being wrong. And I've worked with women in every stage of life: premenopause, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, women with thyroid problems, women with chronic fatigue syndrome, women who'd been told for years that their hormones are the reasons why that they can't lose weight. And none of them were actually unable to lose body fat when I worked with them, not one. Sometimes, yes, it was slower. Sometimes it took a little bit of rehabilitation, more patience, more nuance, more adjusting, but it was never impossible, because weight loss is always possible. Fat loss is always possible. And none of this is groundbreaking, by the way, right? This stuff has been around forever. But I just want to actually explain it properly, because most of what gets thrown around on social media is designed to keep you confused, not to help you understand actually what your body needs, or is just out there to sell the next program. So I really wanted to share this information with you so you can finally clear up why it feels impossible for you to lose weight when you're counting calories or tracking your macros, and it's not a you problem. Right? So I want to first start by debunking the entire starvation mode kind of principle, because that really helps put some things into context. And I hear quite a lot from women, I'm probably not losing weight because my body thinks it's starving. Now, the problem is social media has told you that you are in this starvation mode, so you can't lose body fat. Now, my problem with this is, while there is nuance, while there is an element of truth of, yes, your body is trying to save you, keep you alive, it's not empowering by any stretch of the means, right? So it is not physically possible to be in a genuine calorie deficit and not lose weight. You have to get that thought out of your head, because people get up in arms about this, and you've probably heard that hormones can impact the process, and they can. But we have to make sure that you are fully aware and fully empowered in the knowledge that no matter what, you can lose belly fat, you can lose body fat, you can lose overall weight. And we know this when we look at examples of starvation and war and famine. we see people become emaciated. We know that if you do not eat, you will lose body fat. We know that. Okay, so we have to keep stop. And I'm getting really passionate because the industry and social media is constantly telling women that they're in starvation mode and they can't lose weight because of that. You're not in a place where you can't lose weight. You're in a place where your body needs to feel supported in order to lose belly fat. Okay, so telling a woman that no matter what she does, her hormones will keep her from losing weight. It's, it's just menopause, or it's the menopause belly, right? That isn't accurate. And that is highly disempowering, especially for women around that menopause range, right? They can make progress. I have loads of clients. I have previous, past, and current clients that have made progress in every stage of menopause. And so there is mountains of data on this. Mountains. We know that women can lose weight on menopause, so it's not a you problem, it's the system that you're following, because that is the common denominator. And if you don't fully understand the nuance of energy balance, which, by the way, you're probably not supposed to anyway, it's taken me a long time of constant learning and understanding what is marketing, what is not marketing, what is the science, what is proven, what is not, to really understand what the premise of energy balance actually is, right? And I even did my own research just to produce this episode today to make sure that I was giving you the most accurate and up-to-date information. So most coaches online, regardless of where they got certified, can genuinely don't understand this either. And again, it's not necessarily a problem. It's just only a problem if we're constantly telling women that there's nothing that they can do, or that they need to have a protocol based on their hormones, or they need to balance their hormones by taking this supplement. Like, it doesn't work like that. This stuff just isn't covered in schools. Many people can just chill in their youth on a fast metabolism, on a more active lifestyle, without even realizing that that's what's actually helping them maintain a lower weight. But then life changes, kids come along, your jobs change, stress changes, your relationships change, your responsibilities change, your sleep changes. Especially if you go through menopause, your sleep is going to be impacted. And now suddenly these same women are trying to crash course something that they were never taught the foundations of in the first place. And of course it feels impossible because nobody ever gave you the actual instruction manual. There really isn't. They just handed you this calorie and macro tracker and told you to go and figure it out alone. And this is what really drives me bonkers is, I will say this 1,000 times, right? Calories in versus calories out are not an independent variable. They are a feedback loop. And each side will constantly influence the other. So when somebody says that you're not eating enough to lose weight, there's some validity buried in that statement. Yes, they're not even eating enough to lose body fat, but it's not because skipping food is going to help you hold on to fat. Your physiology will adapt subconsciously for survival, right? Not for your goals. So understanding why that's happening is completely different to just feeling hopeless and really acting like it's some mysterious variable that you have zero control over, because that's just not the case. So let's break the whole system down properly, because I really want you to understand and conceptualize what this looks like and how this plays out in a human body, not on a spreadsheet. So we have calories in, which I'm going to call your input. And this is energy that comes from food, from beverages. Now that includes alcohol, right? Alcohol still has a calorie value, but it doesn't have a nutritional value. And in fact, when we consume alcohol, your body treats it as a toxin. So it prioritizes the metabolism and detoxification of the alcohol before it focuses on anything else. So before it focuses on trying to reduce your body fat. So on your input, you have things like alcohol, snacks, meals, food, just anything that you put in your mouth, right? But in the middle, you have this human operating where it is deciding whether you need to use it or store the excess. and then your output is essentially where it's going. So the output is broken down into many different sections. And you have, first of all, your basal metabolic rate. This is about 70% of the calories that you burn in a day just by being you, just by being alive. So just by being alive, your organs, your tissues, blinking, breathing, this is all categorized under BMR. So essentially, the better that you can get at burning calories in your BMR in the 70%, the more calories you're going to burn at rest. So anytime you add strength training to your day, to your routine, you can build muscle, and lean tissue helps increase your BMR. You need more fuel to fuel those muscles. So that means that you can actually move your body, get up off the floor, right? Carry your shopping, play with your grandkids, fall over when you're old and not break a hip. And that to me is probably one of the most important things about your quality of life. So then on the output as well, you have your NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And this is about 15% of how much you burn every single day. Now, this is not intentional movement. It's not in the workout itself. It's in things like fidgeting, pacing, standing while talking to you guys, right? Naturally moving in a completely subconscious way. And this is really, really important because when you diet for a long period of time, your body starts to reduce your NEAT, the amount of calories that you burn subconsciously, without even noticing. So you might fidget less, talk a little slower, take the lift instead of the stairs. And it's not conscious choices, it is very much subconscious choices, mini tiny choices, and everything adds up. Every single dime will add up, right? Every single dollar will add up. But the thing is this isn't you being lazy, this is the way that we adapt. Then you have the thermic effect of food. So the thermic effect of food is sitting around about 10%, and this is the calories that you burn, the energy that you burn by simply digesting your food. So protein burns off about 20 to 30% of its own calories through the digestion phase, and carbs sit around 5 to 10%, fats barely anything at all. So you've got to think about the foods that you're putting in. It's also influencing the amount of calories that you burn. So the higher quality food, the more calories that you burn just trying to digest it. So when you eat protein, you burn a little bit more. And when you eat whole foods, foods full of fiber, you also lose extra calories in that process as well. So the foods that you choose will genuinely change your output column, not just your input column. And this is just crazy when you think about it, because the quality of food isn't only just going to influence the amount that you burn, but also think about how you feel and respond after having a takeaway or a drive-through versus how you respond after having a green smoothie or an abundance of salads and healthy foods, right? So not only does it actually require you burning more calories to just digest, it also has a knock-on influence to how you feel, how you think, how you react afterwards. Now, there was a really, really interesting study as well about two groups of people were given the same amount of calories throughout the day. Group one was front-loaded with the majority of their calories for breakfast and the rest divided out between lunch and dinner. And the other category was a lower breakfast, lower lunch, and a higher dinner. Now, the thing is the group that had a bigger breakfast, but they ate the same amount of calories overall, they ended up using more calories throughout the day and therefore burning more, therefore losing more fat. So it's not just the quality, it's the timing as well, because the more opportunity you give yourself to work off, and this isn't saying that you have to work off your food, but it's just giving you an option that the more opportunity you give yourself to move and to utilize that clean source of energy that you're putting in, the more chances you have at losing more weight. So notice how there is a lot of nuance playing around and factoring into how much that you're able to burn in a day, right? So yes, calories in versus calories out in a very controlled environment, right? But not necessarily practically. If you have a heavier breakfast in calories, then you have more time and more space to work it off. Whereas if you have a heavy dinner, you're going straight to bed and lying down, right? You don't have an opportunity to burn that. So you've also got to think about how you are going to burn more by changing the inputs. Now, I just want to briefly mention thyroid. So a lot of women will say that they can't lose weight because their thyroid. And this actually is very similar to the obesity gene. A lot of women will say, I can't lose weight because I've got an obesity gene. Now, both of them essentially mean that you just have to have slightly fewer calories throughout the day. It doesn't write you off as someone who is unable to lose weight. It just makes it slightly more difficult. And I only mean by marginally, right? In terms of the amount of calories that you need to consume, fewer than the next person. But your thyroid is directly wired to your metabolism. So your thyroid is going to slow your BMR down. And I just mean this by a couple of hundred calories, right? So your resting metabolic rate is going to fall. And so you can have the same sort of lifestyle as someone else, but you need to consume a couple of hundred calories less. But all of that is really important to understand is what is actually going on in your body before you try and diet, before you try and restrict. Because if you're restricting too much, you go back into that starvation mode that we see, right? Where your body is going to drop to compromise to the lack of input. So yes, the system works and you can absolutely still lose weight with hypothyroidism. It just means that you might need to adjust the output or the input, either way, just to compensate. So let's talk about leptin. I don't think it gets talked about enough, especially with all of these GLP-1s floating around. So essentially, leptin is the hormone that is released by your gut, primarily by your gut. And it just tells your brain, hey, I've got enough in here. Thank you very much. Now, when leptin resistance happens, which is common with people with higher body fat levels, that doesn't necessarily work properly. So your body genuinely believes it doesn't have enough fuel even when it does. And because your body is brilliant at surviving, it starts conserving energy automatically. So both your basal metabolic rate and your NEAT can drop in the background without you even noticing. It's completely subconsciously. You wouldn't notice it at all. But also you now struggle to feel satisfied. You struggle to feel satiated. So you can constantly keep overeating because leptin isn't activating. It isn't telling you that you've had enough. And it's really important to talk about cortisol because a lot of people will think that they can't lose weight because of cortisol. Now, again, it's not that you can't lose weight. It just influences the output. Okay, so cortisol is a stress hormone and we need it. It's essential. Acute stress isn't the problem, but when we have chronic stress, chronic underlying stress, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. And that's when you see this increase in things like water retention, which is what people say there's like cortisol face or puffy belly. But essentially this increased cortisol level will drop your basal metabolic rate ever so slightly because it is catabolic. That means that it breaks down tissue, including that lean muscle, and it can reduce your NEAT. And it can reduce your NEAT through feeling more fatigued because chronic stress is exhausting on a level that most people don't even necessarily realize, which is why for me and my clients, managing and preventing their stress is a huge part of our day-to-day lifestyle. All right, another hormone that gets demonized is estrogen. And estrogen, specifically estradiol, declines through perimenopause and menopause. And that genuinely does shift where you store your body fat. And that tends to be redistributed around the belly area. And that's exactly why we have things called menopause belly, right? It's such a common thing that women will describe. It's not new fat that just appears out of nowhere. It's just your body decides that it's going to change where it stores fat, and then all excess calories that are consumed and stored then starts to get redirected around the belly area. And it also impacts appetite regulation because leptin and ghrelin, your satiety and hunger hormones, they get a little bit dysregulated and disjointed too, which is, partly why appetite can feel a little less predictable at this stage of life. And don't forget, this stage of life is emotional, it's turmoil, right? We will end up being far more sedentary through this stage of our life than we ever have done before. So I'm not saying that it's all your fault. I'm saying that women need to start empowering themselves by seeing the truth of what the reality is now. Because when you go through this phase of your life, I can imagine it can be distressing, disheartening for some people, frustrating, upsetting. So you're going through a whole grieving process. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for the fact that we are actually transitioning and making that a huge change in our life. And so that can come with emotional eating, just a little bit of extra eating, right? A little change in what you eat. Maybe you choose more comforting foods, or maybe you slow down a little bit. Maybe you need to be careful of your back or your hips or something that's a little bit achy. And now you tell yourself, oh, I'm of age now, or I'm getting this age, so I need to slow down, or because I'm this age, I need to slow down. We don't slow down because we get old. We get old because we slow down. And I want you to really think about that saying and really embed that into your head, because it is very important for you to continue to strength train, to move your body and to eat in a way that still nourishes you. Because just because you've hit this stage of life does not mean it's over. It means that it could have just begun, right? You can get rid of some responsibilities and you can enjoy your life now without periods. So then we can talk about progesterone, which also fluctuates through your cycle too. And in the days before you do bleed, if you are bleeding, it raises your body temperature slightly, which can also increase the amount that you're outputting, the amount of calories that you output, which of course means that you're going to crave more because you're burning more because your temperature is raised. So, it doesn't mean that you need an entire new plan or anything. It just means that you need to be conscious that your output has increased without you even knowing, without you even realizing, right? And the thing about all of this is hormones don't create energy from nothing, right? The only thing that causes fat storage is an energy surplus. We have to make sure that we are empowered enough to recognize that that is what it's doing. What hormones do is they change the conditions around you. They will change your appetite, your sleep, your energy, your recovery, your mood. And all of that influences whether you actually do the behaviors that lead to the results. But it doesn't necessarily override the law of thermodynamics in itself. That will always hold. There's no woman on this planet that is an exception to it. But what happens for most women, it isn't some unique hormonal exemption. You're not exempt from life. It's just genuinely us being unaware of how much we are consuming. We overestimate how much activity we do. We underestimate severely how many calories that we eat. And again, it's not a problem with us. It's not that we're broken. It's just that we have never been taught the fundamentals in the first place. And that's why I'm here. I wanted to really share with you that while calories in versus calories out is accurate, your perception and reality of what goes in and what goes out is going to be incredibly different to what you would get on a plan on paper. So if you have struggled to follow the calories in versus calories out method, you are not crazy. And there are so many things that can influence it, that can make it difficult and make it hard, right? And so if you are chasing this like hormone optimization before you've even looked at your lifestyle, your movement, your sleep, your stress, your food choices, you're kind of just skipping ahead and trying to fix something that will not be fixed by these protocols and these plans and these pills and whatever. Because your hormones, yes, they do matter, especially for the quality of your life and your long-term health and your mood and your energy. But that isn't, fixing your hormones isn't going to be the quick fix altogether, right? It's understanding how you can use the equation of calories in versus calories out to your advantage. Okay, so here's what I really want you to take from this. Knowing the science isn't actually going to fix anything on its own. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you to download a tracking app and start logging every gram of food, because for so many women that I've worked with, that exact thing just totally ruins their relationship with food in the first place, right? Yes, if you want to go into body composition or bodybuilding, or if you want a very specific aesthetics, then yes, you'll need to go and track and weigh and track everything that you do. But if you want to be a healthy woman, a woman that is well fed, a woman that has an abundance of energy, balanced moods, balanced hormones, and you feel good in being able to lose weight, eating nice big portions of food that feels good and has you feeling incredible, then counting calories and tracking macros is only going to keep you stuck. Because the women that I see have had the macros and the counting completely break their relationship with food, with themselves. It creates this all or nothing, obsessive and miserable mindset, and that is completely unsustainable. What I actually teach my clients instead is starting to learn your own body signals. And we layer this on with some very loose guidelines, some very loose frameworks. And we look at things like listening to your hunger, listening to your fullness, eating regular meals, not starving yourself and severely restricting yourself, eating whole plant foods, an abundance of low calorie foods. We look at the calorie density chart and we combine all of this together to make sure that you are fully nourished, and fully nourished in other areas of your life as well. Fully hydrated, fully slept, well slept. We want to make sure that you are sleeping enough, because those who are underslept typically overeat by about 300 to 500 calories more the next day without even realizing it. So it's so easy to eat past full if you're not eating healthy foods. So we want to make sure that we're listening to our body, being able to bring our hunger hormones, our appetite hormones back online, so you can start relying on your body again, so you don't have to be tracking everything. Am I saying never track calories? Absolutely not. If it's a great tool for you to help and get an understanding and a good, clean, clear awareness of what is in foods, I highly recommend it temporarily, but I don't recommend it as a long-term approach. It isn't sustainable long-term. So the way that we layer in things like calorie density and hydration, high fiber foods, we layer that in with making sure that you are well slept, that you are stress-free, right? We can't always stop the triggers, but we can always change the responses that we have. And that response is everything. It's if you spiral and then overeat afterwards, right? This is what I put in the program really as a step-by-step guide, is we layer all of these things together for you to have that freedom without ever having to track or weigh everything again. You know, this is still all part of the calories in versus calories out. I'm not really poo-pooing that as a scientific rule. I'm just saying that what do you think you're putting in and what is coming out can feel very, very difficult to sustain long term. You know, this isn't about poo-pooing calories in versus calories out and saying that it's not a thing. But what I am saying is that you are not a spreadsheet, you're not a calculator. And if you consume low energy providing foods, in terms of it makes you feel crap, it makes you feel sluggish, it makes you feel like shit afterwards, you are less likely to output. So just because you consume that many calories doesn't mean that you're going to want to go for a run, doesn't mean that you're going to want to go and get a walk in, doesn't mean that you have enough energy to go and read a book and you're going to sit in front of the TV instead, right? And it's just one of those things that if you've been told that your hormones are the reason why you can't lose weight, or that it's because you're going through menopause, that isn't the case. And I want you to walk away feeling so freaking empowered that you have the choice, that your body is not broken, and that calories in versus calories out is very difficult, and there's a lot of nuance to it when you do have hormones going on in the background, when you have a stressful life, right? And that's genuinely the gap that I built my coaching program to close. So If you are ready to actually understand what your body needs instead of fighting it, if you want a sustainable approach that you can stick to long term, that you don't have to constantly be counting and tracking and spending your life referring to other resources and other apps, then let me know, because I would love for you to book a triage call. I'll have the link in the show notes, but I really want to help you understand exactly what's going on in your body so you get to feel empowered to take action, to get the results that you want, to get the body that you want without the frustration, without the deprivation, without the starvation, because no woman should ever have to lose weight and feel that way. Not when the opposite is true. Not when you can lose weight and feel amazing while doing it. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you on the next one.